was going to be my question to you guys. Do you think, first off, I don't know that he would want that. I want to add another stat to this. Obviously he's 5 shy of tying Gretzky. The most assists and points in a cup final by one single player is 10 and 13 by Wayne Gretzky in 1988. Connor McDavid, 8 assists, 11 points with potentially 2 games to go. So record for most assists and points, 10 assists, 13 points by Gretzky. Connor's got 8 assists, 11 points. So he could not only just break Gretzky's record of total points in the playoffs, but could be cup final points too. And I think the more you narrow it down, the more impressive it gets, because this is really when it counts, right?
100%. You want your biggest players to be big at these times, and he's been historically huge. I mean, like I did a lot of writing about Gretzky for my upcoming book, and the gap between Gretzky and anyone historically or in his era is hilarious. So whenever anyone gets, not even breaks, whenever anyone gets close to one of his records, it's noteworthy. Because they're head and shoulders above everyone else. Like the all-time goals record that Ovechkin may break is one of Gretzky's like easier records to break. And that's insane. Like someone getting what's the record? 47 or 48 points?
47.
Goofy. Completely goofy. Like think of how otherworldly Kucherov was a few years ago. He was getting into the 30s in points. It seemed like that would be the Cap era standard. No one would be able to get past that. And McDavid, I mean, he's just got 4 points in his last 2 games. If he does that again, that's the record and then some. And I know, well, Steve, you're asking him to score 4 points a game. I'm not asking him to do anything. He's Connor McDavid. He'll just do it.
Right.
Like, and now he's about to get home ice advantage. He could break the record and they could still lose the series. Like,
yeah,
he's absurd. He's absurd.
Connor McDavid has 174 points in 99 games total this season. That's according to Scott Wheeler.
Good Lord.
That is, that's crazy. Now, Arpin Basu made a really good point on Twitter last night. And he said the Oilers have made it to Game 6 with Leon Draisaitl putting up no goals and 2 assists through 5 games. He's got to bust out at some point, right? If I'm the Panthers, that thought terrifies me. And I want to relate it to Connor first on this one. Is it more impressive, guys, that Connor's been able to do this without Leon putting up a ton of points as well? Like, does that make it even more impressive that major member of supporting cast hasn't produced perhaps to the level you would expect?
Yes, it does. Well, and like Hyman just got his first goal in I don't know how long. So like it's McDavid producing without a lot of Hyman's help and Draisaitl. Like those two were tied in points or like neck and neck in points, I think, into the conference finals. I'm just looking now. McDavid is 12 points up on Draisaitl. He's 10 points up on Bouchard. Like how is this happening? McDavid's doing this on the power of himself. Like he's got 17 power play points, which means he's still got like, what is that? 25 even strength.
Yeah.
He's only scoring on 11% of his shots, which is downright reasonable. And you know what the scariest part of it for me is, and we really saw this in the third period last night. Forget the points that he's putting up and the dominant offensive performances. You expect those. McDavid on the back check last night. Oh my God. He's going to win this thing on his own. He's going to break history and do this on his own. It's really starting to feel that way.
Guys, Keith Acton and Jesse, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, because I think we should also leave open the door that, like, say he goes pointless in Game 6. I don't think he deserves the Conn Smythe trophy, because I think like the narrative right now we're going with is the last 2 games. But let's say those games happened in games 1 and 2, and then he went 4 consecutive games with the performance that he had in the first 3 games, and I don't feel like if we looked at it as just like that was the most recent history, we wouldn't be screaming about McDavid for the Conn Smythe. I think if next game Panthers go out and win it and Barkov shuts them down, I think the Conn Smythe goes to Barkov.
Do you think that those 3 games of the finals and maybe other games throughout the playoffs are enough to take him out of the contention? If because it's Conn Smythe is a whole playoff MVP.
Yeah.
Right? So you think those 3 games are enough?
Yeah, if you lose if they don't get to game 7, I don't know how you can give him the Conn Smythe trophy, especially if he doesn't have a good performance in game 6.
Right.
And they win 2 games the whole series, and 3 of those, 4 if let's say they lose and he has a mediocre game, just not a otherworldly McDavid game, and 4 of those games the Panthers were limited him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't then we're just basing the narrative off of 2 games that he deserved the Conn Smythe trophy. And I feel like we're going a little far with it in that direction. And you're taking away what Barkov did for 3 rounds and then for 4 games. Because I think right now he's probably the front runner with Bobrovsky's performance in these 2 games, which I'm talking about 2 games affecting your performance. It did for Bobrovsky. And especially at the end of game, was it 2? Even when they won, he wasn't that effective. Or game 3, sorry, there. So I think what Barkov did in 3 rounds plus 4 games against McDavid, he would be more deserving if they win the series 4-2.
See, I'm pulling my vote for Bobrovsky now because of the last 2 games. And I know that seems a little unfair, but I had Bobrovsky. I'm revoking it. And the reason I is because Jesse brought up a really great stat that Bobrovsky was going for the all-time save percentage record in the Stanley Cup Final. I'm like, man, how do you not give it to that guy if he gets it? Now, probably not possible for him to get it after the last 2 games.
Since the 3rd period of game 3, Bobrovsky's a 756 save percentage.
Yeah, that's rough.
Good Lord.
643 goals against average. So he's ruled himself out.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, that's kind of ruined what he's done in the playoffs. And with McDavid, the narrative in 2 games is trumping everything everybody else has done in the entirety of the playoffs.
And 3 games before that. I see what you're saying.
And then so if game 6 just goes, it's a 2-0 win by the Panthers, you can't give him it feels like a consolation trophy. It feels like, oh, we all wanted you to win the Stanley Cup for the sake of history. Here's the Conn Smythe trophy, even though Barkov, I think, in that scenario would be more deserving. Now, we got to leave open the door that Edmonton does into the impossible and wins 2 games. Like, then, yeah, give him the Conn Smythe. But if you lose, if you lose game 6 and a 2-0, he doesn't deserve a Conn Smythe
What if
trophy.
they win game 6? And then they go to game 7 and they lose.
Yeah.
And it's Connor McDavid that wins game 6.
I'll entertain that 100%.
You'll entertain that. Okay.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I want to go through the history of this, Steve, while you're thinking about it. Okay. Because the last few players to win the Conn Smythe trophy and be on a losing team are goaltenders. J.S. Giguère for the Mike Babcock coached Stumpy Thomas-led Anaheim Ducks in 2003, and I believe they lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals against, who was it against?
Devils.
The Devils. Oh. The 1987 Philadelphia Flyers, Ron Hextall, who was a rookie, they went to Game 7 against the Oilers and lost. The last player was just under 50 years ago. Reggie Leach of the 1976 Philadelphia Flyers, Glenn Hall of the 68 Blues, Roger Crozier of the 66 Red Wings are 2 other guys that have done it. It's only happened, as I say, 6 times in this league. So it kind of makes sense that we have to be talking about this at this point. We have to be talking about legacy things, and the Conn Smythe Trophy really is a legacy trophy. It really is you did this when it counts. I would say, and here's a crazy hot take. Conn Smythe says a lot more about the player's importance to the team than MVP of the regular season. I think when you talk about importance of trophies, if we're going to rank trophies, to me, it's like outside of the Stanley Cup, obviously. Conn Smythe's the number 1. It's the most important one. And it's because this is when it counts. And there are guys that go on runs and win them. Giguère is one of them. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But they did it. They did it.
All right. It's likening to say like the the Stanley Cup means more than the President's Trophy. Like, I think we look at those two different seasons, you know, and the one is the champion of one is the champion of the other. If you say the playoffs are everything, then being the MVP of the playoffs means more than being the playoffs of the regular season. I totally get what you mean. And the Reggie Leach year, 76, that year he set the all-time goals record for most goals in a playoffs with 19. So that's why he got the Conn Smythe Trophy that year. And if McDavid sets the all-time points record in the playoffs, then it's the exact same plane that Reggie Leach is on. You know, it's they both had a historic record, and they, in the losing effort, they get the Conn Smythe Trophy. And I believe Leach, when they lost, it was in Game 7 as well. If I'm pretty sure,
I think it was. Here, I'll pull it up. I've got it here.
So, like there it is. You know, 7 games, very end, you break an all-time record. You get the Conn Smythe Trophy, and I feel like McDavid needs to get to that there to give him the trophy. So I think it's premature for me after game number 5 to give the guy the Conn Smythe Trophy when they could easily win 2 games this series. He could just have 2 really good games. And the guy on the other side of the ice, the captain of the Florida Panthers, who throughout the entire playoffs was unbelievable, shut down every star, could be the leading point getter of their team and be the best defensive player that we've seen in the playoffs in a long time.
Let's think about this like a voter, right? Let's think about this like one of the guys up in the press box who had to vote on this thing. CJ has talked about this process before on the most recent or second most recent CJ show. I've been listening to a lot of it over the last few days. He talked about like Kessel and Crosby being separated by like 1 vote or something like that. The difference is those guys are on the same team.
Yep.
You're a voter and you think it's close. And let's say your ballot is Barkov and McDavid and you can't decide. You got to either give the trophy to someone who wants it or someone who doesn't. You know what I mean? McDavid, like that J.S. Jaguar picture of him with the Conn Smythe is terrible.
Nobody wants that.
No,
like,
it's the worst trophy to win in that scenario.
Yeah. It looks like the worst day of his life. And that trophy is part of the reason why I wanted the Ducks to win in 07. That and they were playing the damn Sens. But like I saw that and I'm like, man, he really like he needs to wash that off of his legacy. That greatest loser photo. Like he wants to be anywhere in the world but accepting that award.
It feels
so
I don't know if you guys,
I would go to the guy who wants it.
I don't know if you guys agree, but it feels a bit, if he wins it in 6 games in a 4-2 Stanley Cup final loss, it feels like a participation trophy for a guy who we knew is doing great stuff and is one of the greatest players of this generation to just be like, hey, you didn't win the Stanley Cup, but here's this.
It does set you up for enjoy that trophy.
Like,
loser. Yeah, it does.
It's icky. And I'll come here on, because we won't record a show until Monday if they clinch on Friday. I'll come here on Monday and probably scream about how Barkov was robbed. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
By the way, just a little bit on the Reggie Leach stuff, because I do want to talk about it just quickly, just to give you some history. Reggie Leach is the only player, non-goalie, to do this. He, interestingly, won the Conn Smythe despite the Philadelphia Flyers being swept in the 1976 finals by the Montreal Canadiens.
So it wasn't even
he won. Games, you could argue he won it before the finals even started, because he scored 19 goals. It set an NHL playoff record, and it has only since been tied once by Yari Curry in 1985. So
and I think like a handful of guys have 18, like Sakic.
Yes,
some guys.
Yeah. So and
oh my god,
isn't that wild? And the article I'm reading mentions that Chris Pronger with the Oilers in 2006 was averaging over 30 minutes a night. 30 minutes a night. That was a crazy run by the Oilers.
It'd be like if McDavid had 48 points at the end of the Dallas series.
Yes.
Like then like, probably give it to him.
Probably. Yeah.
Hey,
but he didn't do that.
You want a depressing stat?
Yes.
So McDavid's chasing down Gretzky, right? What is Gretzky at again? I can't remember.
47
or 48?
Yeah.
47.
Yeah.
All right. Morgan Riley in his playoff career, 40 points. William Nylander in his playoff career, 43 points. McDavid is 1 back. John Tavares in his playoff career, 46 points. McDavid is 4 back. Austin Matthews in his playoff career, 48 points. McDavid is 6 back. And Mitch Marner, the greatest playoff performer for the Toronto Maple Leafs in this generation. You stop it. Numbers are numbers, Adam. 50 points in his playoff career. McDavid is 8 points back. Does he pass the Leafs' entire core 5 in the remaining?
So he's done 8 points.
2 games.
He's done 8 points in 2 games. I think unless Leon Draisaitl starts to score, he's gonna have to do it again for them to win like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Or these. Well, I mean, McDavid shouldn't win the Conn Smythe because he's not even the best Connor on the
Connor
Oilers.
Brown.
Connor Brown was the architect of the first goal, both shorthanded for the Oilers in each of their last 2 games. He set up Janmark, who almost screwed it up by putting it wide, and then Barkov, obliged him. So really, I count that as Brown's goal anyway. And then Brown with a ridiculous breakaway. I love vindication. Like, okay, are they paying him too much? Yeah, probably. But I feel like for most of the season, I was pretty steadfast in Connor Brown did not forget how to play hockey. He's simply recovering from an injury.